Our friend Kellyanne Conway actually was on Fox and Friends. I loved her comment. She said the Democrats are being a bunch of crybabies who say they're going to oppose the Supreme Court nominees before they even know the person's name, their academic credentials, and impeccable judicial record. And they everything seems to make them cry and scream. Kellyanne is with us. She's a counsel to the president. And how are you? And, boy, these have been a whirlwind 2 weeks for you.
Absolutely incredible, Sean. You know what I say about the Trump White House? Everything is in dog years. You have to multiply it by 7.
I didn't know you said that. Is that true?
Well, I just did.
You know,
yes.
I watch you on some of these shows, and you and I have been friends going back over 20 years. And number one, I'm really proud of you because you are the first woman to be a campaign manager to win a presidential election. I think it's a huge milestone, and you're the person that deserves so much credit for working so hard for the president. I said that in a recent interview that came out. And, you know, I'm watching you going on these interviews, and I watch Reince, and I watch Sean Spicer. Am I wrong in saying they are beyond disrespectful to you and them on a regular basis? And then the question is, why do you keep doing shows where they obviously hate you?
I only care, Sean, if people are being disrespectful to the president of the United States. That is unacceptable. I was raised to respect the office of the president and its current occupant, no matter who it's been. And I just think you can't really show a difference in the coverage of Donald Trump among some of these outlets and some of these reporters and tweeters between when he was running for president, when he became the nominee for the Republicans, when he was the president-elect, and now when he's president. The coverage never changed. It never progressed. It never matured. It never took on the aura of respect that it deserves. And if you are not showing the president and his main spokespeople respect, then you're not showing the office respect, and you are inciting mob mentality, if not mob violence. You're encouraging people to go out there and unpeacefully protest and block airport entrances for people who are going to visit a sick parent and can't make their flights, or going for a bereavement call and can't make their flights. There's nothing peaceful and nothing democratic about folks who are out there really just trying to relitigate the election and protesting things they know nothing about. I mean, if you surveyed these protesters, I guarantee you'd have a very low level of literacy when it comes to why are you here, what exactly does that executive order do, and what does it not do?
Well, I watch you guys in these interviews, and for example, I was watching Reince with Chuck Todd, of all people, last weekend, and the White House, I can't hear you, what?
I didn't say anything.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we just had a glitch in my ear. All right, so I'm watching Reince Priebus on with Chuck Todd over the weekend, and he's being grilled over the Holocaust for like 6 minutes, as if somehow the White House slighted Jewish Americans. It was just the opposite, that you guys had remembered it, or the MLK bust removed from the White House would never happen. There was a fake news story today about, you know, that Neil Gorish was part of a group in high school called Fascism Forever Club.
That's right. Well, that's what happens. I call it presumptive negativity. You know, they're congenitally against the president. They're lying in wait for any little thing. They come to the table with snark. And in the case of Chuck Todd, between the last 2 times I appeared on Meet the Press, 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago this Sunday, it was a 10-minute interview. 10 minutes and 1 second on the nose, and they used 48 seconds of it. And they said, well, we were just looking for a soundbite. And we made very clear that we are not in the business of furnishing interviews so they can cherry pick a soundbite. He had Ash Carter, the outgoing defense secretary, on for like 12 minutes. I was falling asleep every time the guy was talking. He's the outgoing. What is he telling you? What kind of masking tape or double-sided tape to use as you pack your boxes? And the incoming counselor to the president just took that little snippet, and then 2 weeks later did what? I was on with him for an 8.5-minute interview, and NBC News and Meet the Press tweeted out one excerpt from that whole interview, a phrase I used that the president says is a genius, by the way. A phrase I used instead of all the excerpts, the clips, maybe you should put on your website, of me saying to Chuck Todd, listen, you're not being a reporter right now. You're expressing your opinion. Respectfully, it's not your job to give America your opinion. It's your job to give America the news. You're there to report the news, not to make it. They don't cover any of that. They don't release any of those clips because it shows the forcefulness with which we're going to push back when this man is not being covered. Look, Sean, it's very easy for your listeners and your viewers, millions as they are, to detect media bias. Bias is easy to detect. I'll tell you what's not easy to detect: incomplete coverage. It's what is the rest of the story you're not telling America? What are you skipping over as you curate and reduce the news to a couple of clever sound bites? What are this country suffers from information underload already, and some of these news outlets and anchors are just making it worse by cherry-picking and curating the comments and being incomplete in their coverage of everything this man has done in 2 short short week.
But, you're right about the audience being very sophisticated. They're hip to what's going on. And you see it in the ratings. CNN has literally, they've become a fake news network, and it shows people don't have confidence in them. Polls show it, and their ratings show it every night. I get ratings every day. Very few people watch MSNBC. I mean, I guess if you love Bernie Sanders and socialism and you loved Obama, then you'll love MSNBC because that's your channel.
Well, the other thing I just want to say quickly about that, if you're a Democrat or even an independent who voted for Donald Trump and Mike Pence, and there were many, if you're that labor union guy in Wisconsin or Pennsylvania and you voted for the guys I grew up with, you voted for Donald Trump, where exactly are you going to go? But Fox or but your radio? Where are you going to go but for talk radio to Fox News to get information? Because you just gave this guy your voice, your vote. You just lost friends and family members over this, and you genuinely are cheering him and your country on and want to hear how he's doing and what he's doing. Where are you going to go but for the places that are providing you that information?
Well, I think I've called it an informational crisis in the country. I've said journalism, for all intent and purposes, is dead. I said that, Kellyanne, for the first time in 2008. Now it's dead and buried. I'll give you 3 recent examples. So I mentioned the fake news on Neil Gorsuch, the Supreme Court pick, which I thought was a fabulous choice by the president. And by the way, another promise kept by the president. The MLK bust is another example. And for example, the way that they have characterized Chuck Todd is another example. He said the president has now instituted a religious test. And how many times did CNN and these other networks refer to 7 countries as a Muslim ban? It's not a Muslim ban when you have, 258.3 million Muslims in Indonesia. They're not banned. Or 156.1 million Muslims in Bangladesh. They're not banned. Or Pakistan, 201.9 million Muslims there. And then you have 40 other plus Muslim majority nations. There's no ban.
That's right. Well, that's the thing. Plus, don't forget, of course, that we got that list from President Obama. President Obama and this last Congress are the ones who came up with those 7 countries. And the 7 countries are chosen, has nothing to do with ethnicity, has nothing to do with religion, has everything and only thing to do with they have a recent history of training, harboring, and exporting terrorists. And what happens, Sean, why this extreme vetting is so important and so urgent, what happens is these foreign nationals come here to the United States, then they return to one of those countries, they get radicalized, trained, they become expert terrorists, and then they come back here or they go to Europe, Nice, Brussels, Paris, London, Turkey, Germany, and they do their bloodletting. Of course, they do, and at least this guy calls it radical Islamic terrorism. And if people want to reduce it to, I just heard Islam, no, you need to hear all 3 put together. We'll hyphenate it for you or smush it all together if it helps you understand that we are at war with people who would destroy all of us in a nanosecond if they could. Hillary Clinton said, our determined enemy at her convention speech. I heard that. I was waiting on your set in Philadelphia, the Democratic National Convention, reading her remarks. And I did a search. Couldn't find radical Islamic terrorism anywhere. She said, our determined enemy. And I knew she'd lose right there because people want you to name it, and then you can blame it and you can destroy it. And that's what this president is doing.
I think as we watch this whole campaign unfold, and we had many private discussions during the time, and we both knew that Donald Trump had a very good chance of winning. We saw the sides of the crowd. We saw the momentum growing. You know what the amazing thing is when he introduced Neil Gorsuch the other night, he said, I made a promise to the American people. I'm a man of my word, and I'm fulfilling a promise. Now, similarly, he's fulfilling his promise now in the process of eliminating and repealing Obamacare, and he's fulfilling his promise on getting rid of regulations. That process is basically going on every day. He fulfilled his promise and is continuing to do that by withdrawing the U.S. from TPP and limiting the size of government with a hiring freeze and the money that was federal funds that were providing abortions abroad, and then Keystone, and then the Dakota pipeline, and then the construction of the wall, extreme vetting, rebuilding the military. They're drafting a plan to defeat ISIS, a 5-year lobbying ban. And I'm thinking, how could so many people be so wrong? Even so-called conservatives of National Review and the Weekly Standard and Bill Kristol and Brett Stevens of the Wall Street Journal, how were they so wrong and not able to see what both of us saw?
Well, there's a bubble, and some of our friends live in that bubble, and they think if they keep repeating it long enough, it just comes true. They're like They're like the people who need to lose the last 10 pounds and win the Powerball. If I just say it long enough, it'll come true. That didn't come true. And they misread America. I mean, here's my entire point to the media, as said to Fox News Channel Chris Wallace last Sunday. You missed America. You didn't understand America, and Donald Trump understood America. And he didn't just understand them. He went out and talked to them one-on-one. And he continues to be the most masterful, brilliant, genius connector and communicator directly with people I've ever seen. He goes around the media through his social media platforms on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. If he puts out a tweet, everybody changes their coverage as they're doing it. They literally cover that as news. It could be something that was already out there in the public domain, but when he puts his imprimatur on it, they pay attention to it. It becomes a news story. So it's a whole new way of communicating. And what the media don't like about that, and that includes plenty in the conservative media, Sean, is they don't like him cutting out the middleman. One. Two, they don't like him giving information for free. So you need no subscription to follow Donald Trump on Twitter, and to then see him have this democratization of information where we all learn the same thing at the same time. It's truly brilliant, and it's not going to stop. I fully encourage it.
It certainly has worked. I'll tell you this, and maybe this is a discussion for another day because I've got to go, and I know you have to go, but I think it may be time to totally rethink how a White House will deal with a very abusively biased, and in the case of this modern media, one that colluded with your opponent in the general election. But Kellyanne, we're really proud of you. I know how hard you're working, and it's always great to have you on the program, and the success and the promises being kept is more than refreshing.
Thank you for your support, Sean, and the platform. God bless you. Thank you.
God bless you, too. You're doing a great job.